I've heard something these last few months, maybe the last few years, that I'd never heard before in all my life. And that is people saying, what is democracy given to us? Why should I vote? Why? Democracy is just a mess. It's chaos. And we need something that's more stable. So I want to talk just a little bit about that, about democracy and voting and acting in the world. A few years ago, I was terribly concerned about, it was at the beginning of this time of tremendous polarization. Maybe it was halfway through, I don't know, but it was 5 years ago. I had an opportunity to speak in many parts of the world. And I decided I would use that opportunity to listen more than anything, and to look to see if I couldn't build or strengthen or support democracy in many parts of the world. And I went to poor countries, I went to rich countries, I went to countries that were strongly democratic and countries that were not, that were dictatorships. Everywhere I went, when I gathered a group of people, and it could be 30 people, it could be 300 people, if we were able to create a successful civilization, what I called a golden civilization, what would it have in it? And everywhere I went, people said democracy. Among other things, among many things, kindness, community. Democracy might not have been the first thing. It's something that's very easy to lose. And I got that sense as I went around the world. One of the most extraordinary experiences I had was in Hong Kong. It was a time where the young people were in the streets, and they were everywhere. So in the hotel I was in, I would see them walking outside, and I would race to meet them so I could interview them and find out what they were thinking. Why were they doing this? What did this mean to them? But the purpose of my being there in that hotel was that I was gathering a group of people. It might have been, 50 people. And asking them about that, what kind of a society, what kind of a civilization they would like. And people were speaking, and it was just wonderful to hear. And it was normal people, it wasn't the students out there who were taking the risks around democracy. These were people mostly from the financial world, because that was where my gig came from. And yet, they were talking about all these wonderful things that would make a great civilization, including democracy. And at one point, about 2/3 of the way through this conversation, where I was just listening, just basically and writing on the board what it was people said, there was a voice from way back in the group. It was a strong, deep voice. And it said, "You can't talk about those things here." And suddenly, all through the room, there was this chill. People became quiet. People weren't raising their hands or volunteering. What would make a great civilization? Well, I'd been particularly careful. I didn't want to offend the people who had invited me or the government. So I listened respectfully to his voice and continued to go on a bit more cautious. People at the end of the talk, shortly thereafter, came and only would whisper to me what they thought, how appreciative they were of what had happened. He was a bully, and bullies were prevalent at that time in Hong Kong because the vast majority of the people wanted freedom and wanted democracy. When we look at what's happened in Hong Kong since then, we see that democracy has been squashed. Something to be aware of here as we are wrestling with what to do. When I went on that tour, I felt as if I were in a small skiff on a wild, tumultuous sea. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I was going to be meeting. I didn't know the cultures in advance that I went to. But I knew that it was important to listen. That freedom has a lot to do with, a tremendous amount to do with listening. And the other thing that I knew, and I would hear this from the audiences, was I knew that it was important to be kind to people, and also to speak the truth. The bullies of Hong Kong had the power to shut maybe not the interior dream, but the public dream of democracy down. Bullies have no place in a free society. They cannot have a place in a free society because they want to squash it. They're terrified of the vitality of the turbulent sea around them that is a sea of freedom. They're terrified of it, and of the turbulent sea inside themselves. So what I want to say is that just because it looks as if democracy seems chaotic at this point, as if, and you wonder what good your vote can be, don't give up on it. It's easy, relatively easy to lose democracy, as Hong Kong found when it was so close to developing it. Much harder to come back from an autocratic society to create it. So if I were recommending, I'd say look out at the candidates there and vote for those that you think will strengthen and support democracy, that will give voice to everyone, will listen to everyone. People are people, and it's hard to, we can always see challenges and we can always see weaknesses in people. Who's best? Use your intelligence. But please don't give up on democracy, on truth, and on freedom. Exercise your power to vote and speak out. Do whatever you can.